Thank you so much for listening to Breadwinning Mums. We really appreciate your continued support over the last year, and we're happy to announce that we have published the Breadwinning Mums book. Yay! This book is based on the conversations from the Breadwinning Mums Season 1 episodes. It highlights the candid journeys of each mums, as well as a golden nugget of wisdom from their life's lessons. Now is the perfect time to give the gift of the Breadwinning Mums book to the special mums in your life or to yourself. No matter where you are in life, I'm sure the practical tips within the Breadwinning Mums book will help you take your lives just a little bit further. Limited copies available, so order yours now at breadwinningmums.com. That's breadwinningmums.com.
Thank you everyone for coming to the launch of Breadwinning Mums. I'm just going to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, and pay my respects to their elders past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander today. And we're about to and say a few words. Thank you, Laura. Is that better? Thank you, Laura, and thank you, Bowen, for helping us. I know that you're staying back tonight, so I really appreciate you looking at the animals. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. A couple of years ago, due to some circumstances that I explained on the book, I suddenly found myself in the role of the sole income earner for my family. And my kids were 2 and 4 at the time, and I've been running my own financial planning business for about 10 years. So I thought that going back to work full-time was going to be exhilarating and interesting and exciting, which it was, because I really love what I do, and I love who I do it for, and I get massive appreciation from my clients. But what I did anticipate was this nagging mother's guilt, right? And I'm sure most moms can relate. The guilt of leaving my 2-year-old at home, not being able to sing her songs and tell her about alphabets and animals. The guilt of not being able to pick up my son from preschool and ask him about his day. So in my attempt to soothe my mum's guilt, I go out and ask other mums in their jargon about family and life and how they're doing it. But what I found was so much more than just tips and wisdoms. I found a village of women who are bravely and courageously taking each step every day, being a better person, a better mum, a better worker, a better contributor to the community. And so in Julie's story, I learned the significance of adapting a helicopter view in your life and making sure that each crucial buckets in your life are filled to the level that you're happy with. In Wendy's journey, I found the courage, the determination to embrace life's challenges with full positivity. And in Yanti, I found full, collected, calm courage to take every challenge, every prejudices that society throws at you, with just incredible determination. So thank you for everyone, each one of you for your support. And because this has always been a mission for female empowerment, all profits from the book will go towards charities and organizations that are working towards gender equity worldwide. So we support Mothers Heart in Cambodia, who are helping women with crisis pregnancy, who are suddenly left without any support, both from home life and healthcare wise. We also support Rumah Sukacita Foundation in Indonesia, who are working with rural craftswomen and educating them in how they can build sustainable businesses. We're also working with UNSW founders in their New Way program, where they encourage women to start their own business and see where they can thrive in the startup ecosystem. So thank you again from the bottom of my heart for your support. And without further ado, I'd like to invite the wonderful women, Julie, Wendy, and Yanti, to come up. Let us know if you can't hear this one. Okay, ladies, thank you so much for coming. For most of us who are here, I wonder whether it started your story first, your childhood journey, your professional journey, and your motherhood journey.
So, you guys know me? My name is Yanti. I just moved to Sydney, so I'm about to start work tomorrow at BTS, and yeah, so that's first week.
As
So I'm just gonna get my thoughts collected together. So childhood, I'm a Ropeyarn on my father's side, Ropeyarn, and Watchalong on my mother's side. So Aboriginal culture. I grew up in a small remote Aboriginal community in Cape York, so that's where I'm from. And I met Jane when we were doing our MBA. Motherhood, very new to it, so I've got 11-month-old with my beautiful wife at the back, who keeps me very busy and on my toes and sleep deprived.
Cute. They'll grow very, very quickly. I remember holding my little boy, who's very blue as well, and there's no way I'd ever dream of holding him up. He was probably can hold me like that now. But yeah, Jane, thanks for having me. My name is Wendy Zveglic. My journey is my parents migrated out from South America, Ecuador, left everything behind, hoping to build a better future. A couple of times throughout growing up, they missed home and the traditions and their culture, so we moved to America. We moved back to South America when I was 12, and I think that was instrumental in kind of the formation of who I am as an adult, because at the age of 12, I thought I could speak Spanish, and I landed in Ecuador, and I couldn't read, write, or speak Spanish, and that was hard. Teenage years are hard, and let alone not being able to communicate, but I think it taught me some lessons of resilience, of not giving up, of forming connections, and yeah, so that's kind of a little bit about my parents' background. I'm lucky enough to be the mum of 2 boys, Aiden and Levi, who are here today, and they are the biggest job that I've ever undertaken. Can't get fired on the job. Tough bosses, but also the most rewarding job that I get to do in life. My husband's an incredible supporter of everything that I do, so yeah, so that's what I kind of do. Number one, wife, mother, daughter, community person. I'm as part of that as well. My career history has been hashtag from teller to tech. And I started as a part-time teller, was an accountant, financial planner, worked all the way through retail, business, bank, wealth, insurance. And then the Royal Commission hit, and my CEO was on the stand, and they had asked me to overlook all the complaints that were coming through at the CEO level. And it's heartbreaking to be sitting in front of people day after day in their 80s that couldn't go back to work, that had lost everything, had sold all their assets, had invested to the best of their ability. And so I wanted, at that time I felt like if we had had a chance to understand what tech would do, it could have saved so much. So I literally left behind my banking and finance career and decided to jump into tech and take a role as an engineer and go to Salesforce University, fail exams, sit in front of enterprise clients, and really kind of go, what can tech do for you? So I pivoted, I never fitted in, I wasn't a normal solution engineer. I talked about values and problems and how it would help me as a business leader. And bit by bit, I found my authentic way. returned back into leadership. And then last year, in 18 months, when I was working at Salesforce, I heard Jane interview a colleague, and I was absolutely floored and amazed. And then Jane, we got connected, and Jane invited me on the podcast, and I nervously said yes. I thought I don't really have much to share, but yes, okay. And then so our friendship and connection and cheering each other on began from there. And then last year she reached out saying, hey, I'm going to publish a book, and I published a story, and I went, oh my gosh, who's going to read it? And so I'm lucky enough to be one of the 19 featured in the book, and chapter 1, and I'm forever grateful for that. My journey pivoted. I was made redundant overnight, and that completely really rattled me. And at that time, I had to pick myself back up from the floor, and I've landed in another tech role, in a bigger role, overseeing engineers, and it's just what is that? So that's a little bit about me.
Hi, thank you, Jane, for inviting me to it. I'm really happy to be here. I'm probably a breadwinning grandma at this point.
You're OG, okay, OG.
OG. What's OG?
Original.
Oh, original. I was born in the north of England. I was the youngest. I had 3 brothers, 3 boy cousins, and 6 boys. So I grew up with 6 boys. And I was constantly in trouble at school for fighting. So the only way I knew how to resolve issues was to punch. And I was very small at the time. But so I suppose I grew up a fighter. I trained as a nutritionist and started out as a health writer for a magazine called Good Housekeeping Magazine. But then spent 17 years in Hong Kong, met my husband Barry, and we would have been together 40 years this, I better remember the date, August. We went to Hong Kong for 2 years and stayed for 17 years. Barry was working as an engineer, and I decided I wanted to learn how to do business. I worked with an Indian entrepreneur and then set up an events company. So I did corporate events around Asia for around 14 years, which was really exciting, but almost killed me because I did like the Bill Gates roadshows for Asia and the Clinton events. So they were like working 20 hours a day, literally traveling. And at the time, I'm not sure how it happened, but I had 2 children. So Jake, I met Jane through Jake, and Yanti, who did an MBA last year. So Jake is now 30 and Joshua is 28. So we were in Hong Kong for all of those years. And then 1997, I realized that I was actually killing myself by working so hard. So I was fortunate enough to sell the company, and we moved to Australia. And we came here and said, let's just spend some time and not work so hard. And after about 3 months, I went to the doctor and I said, I'm not sure what happened, but I think I'm depressed. And she said, tell me the story. I said, well, I've never been depressed, but I really feel depressed. And she said, tell me the story. And I told her, and she said, you're bored. She said, I think you're bored after the life you lived, then coming and, picking up the kids at the school gate. Nothing wrong with that. I was delighted to do it, but it wasn't enough compared to the life I'd lived. So we set up another company, the Institute of Executive Coaching and Leadership, and built that for 16 years. And that was really exciting, and I learned a whole range of different skills then in terms of how to help people be more effective at communicating and leading and managing. And then we sold that about 3 years ago, and now I truly am retired, except working with a Cambodian charity, because one of the things I've always found is, I think, shall I talk about the buckets now or later? Please, let's do it. I've always liked the idea of a bucket, because when I was working in Hong Kong with the events company, I worked and I had family. and I wasn't very good at the family, but I was very good at work. And so I recognized at that point my thyroid almost cut out because I was working so hard, I wasn't resting, I wasn't eating properly. And I recognized then that in order to feel balanced and fulfilled, there were 4 things I needed in my life. I needed my family and friends. I needed my well-being, which was my health and fitness, which I didn't take care of. I needed obviously work, family and friends, and then I also needed a purpose. And I was involved in an orphanage in Hong Kong, a pregnant women's shelter. For about 30 years I've been involved, and went into China and saw, it was a time where the BBC did a program on the dying rooms, and 90% of babies in the state orphanages in China at the time died within a year. And we set up hospitals, and a lot of the young girls from Hong Kong who were pregnant were going across the border to Shenzhen for 3rd trimester terminations. So we set up a facility where the girls could come and be supported, and that's still going. And then I went with World Vision along the Vietnamese trucking route, and it was the time when AIDS was just becoming known, and the Vietnamese trucking route, the drivers were coming along from Vietnam into China, and infecting a lot of the women there. And so a lot of HIV in the early days when it wasn't even really known about. So we set up the hospices and the small group homes for the children who were orphans because of that. So the point being was that I recognized that in order to feel fulfilled in myself, it wasn't enough to work and have family and friends and health and well-being, but I needed a purpose. And so since then, that purpose has always stopped me going a little bit off track with all the other areas of my life.
Thank you, Julie. What I really love about each one of your stories is that you're all accomplished in your own professional careers. Yanti just accepted a huge job at UTS as the Indigenous Library Senior Head of. But I want to take back that professional layer and just talk about the journey that you went through with your darling wife, Jo. How hard the conception journey was, because when we first got to know each other, we were talking about how hard it was and to just keep going at it, even though it was hard because we shared the same sad stories as well. But can you talk us through your journey?
So I forgot to mention, I'm a librarian as well, so this is kind of, fitting.
You're in your element.
I'm in my element. So just, with my journey, it's okay journey to share. We have 8 miscarriages, so Elo is kind of a miracle in a way. So we got pregnant. She came down to do the MBA, surprisingly, in July of 2022. So it was, I think at the time we lost our first one together as wives. It was really hard because Jerry did share with me prior to us getting together that she had tried before, and so she had 4 losses before we got together. So and I said, we'll give it a go and see what happens. And we did 3. We lost the first one, we lost the second one, and then we came along as a surprise. Funnily enough, when I left, I came down to Sydney, so I was like, yeah, I'm coming. It is but no, he's been a joy. So, through it all, in the middle of it, it's Joe. She's courageous, brave. She allows me to share the story, so she's kind of, feel they're hiding and behind the light.
It's such a brave story as well. I remember when you first told me, Jo, you were very technical with your description. You're like, yeah, okay, good. But Wendy, if you wouldn't mind sharing your story, and this was something that we just sort of uncovered during the conversation, and I love our conversation, it's just organically flowing. But the heartbreak that you experienced, the heartbreak that I shared with you, if you mind sharing that with us?
As in the losses? Yeah. So, you know, like, I think growing up, I'm the eldest and the only girl, and I've always loved all things feminine, and so it was my hope and dream to have, you know, kids. I had the two boys, and, you know, when I, you know, like, for me, it was like, I'd love to complete a full circle with a little girl. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be, right? And it's sometimes really hard when culturally people will say, aren't you going to go for the third, or, you know, to have a girl, and it's like, I'm trying, but it's not meant to be. And so we had two losses, and at that time, you know, you just have to kind of accept sometimes that that is your fate, but also mourn the loss of the daughter, you know. And that was really hard. I remember the second, you know, the second loss. I remember laying out in my backyard, and it was a sunny day, and I just felt so like gutted. And I was in the backyard with my two boys, and I thought I have so much to be grateful for. But why can't it be enough? And why am I wanting more? And so at that time I thought, it's not meant to be, that's not my chapter. And so I had to, I kind of went, well, if I ever have it, if I had a daughter, what would I want her to be? And how would I want her to live? And so at that moment, it was like, well, I'm going to go for every opportunity that I can. I'm going to be brave. I'm not going to just give up. I'm going to, want the very best, through that loss of her, in me. And it was one of the saddest and hardest moments. But yeah, so we ended up to even out the boy energy, you know, the two boys and the husband, but he's the naughtiest of the three that we're having. We ended up getting a dog, and it was like, I said, okay, one girl dog, and then Anthony, of course, was like, I feel sorry that the dog will be by themselves all day, so we ended up getting two dog sisters, Bailey and Ruby, and so they kind of even out the score in my household, but they keep us very
You just very kindly invited me to the International Women's Day celebration. It's at Sydney High School, where we just had a conversation with other year 11 and 12 girls, and I could see your relationship with those girls. You're so giving, so generous. So I think it's very inspiring how you turn your adversity into something that is so inspiring to everyone.
I remember last year the high school. So here's the thing: the high school, where my boys go to high school, they go to a local school. And 7 years ago, when Aiden was choosing what school to go to, he got invited into to tour South Sydney, and it was so surreal because it was the same high school I went to 20 years plus ago. And in the parent-teacher nights, one of the mums that runs the commerce head of was like, oh, your story's so fascinating, and you used to come to this school and you studied accounting and then you moved into tech. Wow! Would you ever come back and talk to the girls? And I was like, sure, like, what would I share? You know, and it's just like your story. I think it's just one of inspiration and of courage. And so she reached out and said, hey, International Women's Day, we're going to do a morning tea. Could you come along? Could you be one of the mums? And I'm like, okay, like nervous, yes. And at the time, as we got closer to the day, I reached out and I said, hey, so what do you want me to bring? Is it a plate of food? Am I just, chatting and mingling amongst the other mums? And she was like, no, I want you to talk to all the girls from year 7 to year 12. And at that time, I had just been made, my role had been impacted. And I felt like such a fraud to stand in front of them and to say, I don't have it all figured out. The job that I had, I remember sitting there looking at them in their uniform. And I sat in the same library wearing the same uniform 20 plus years ago. And, I don't even have it figured out yet. And I feel like I'm an imposter because, like, my job's just being let go. And I don't even know where I'm going to land or where my story is going to continue, but I hope to share with you the lessons I've learned so far. And I said, I hope that, like, right now, I feel like I'm applying to 5,500 jobs and everyone keeps saying no or not even responding. And I said, but I hope to come back and tell you how my chapter ends or where the next step lands me. And so this year, they reached out to me and I was able to share with them the last 365 days. But when they did reach out, I said, I also want to invite 2 other women that have been crucial this year for me. And that was Jane and another friend. And so they stood with me to share their story. And it was before we even knew the theme of International Women's Day, which is #CountHerIn. Count her in. And that's what, small acts like this, invited me to the podcast, publishing the story in the book, like I was so there's a little bit about how it keeps giving and we help each other and cheer each other on.
What I love about our conversation, Julie, is how frank you are with every facet of your life. And one of my favourite part of Julie's story was when your boys had chicken pox and you were giving them the ointments that you said, I've got to leave because I've got Bill Gates on my
This was Hong Kong. This was, talk about mum guilt. It was like, I was in Hong Kong, I was very fortunate. I had live-in help. But it was the Bill Gates event. He was in town for 5 days with all his top 350 clients, the Bill Gates Roadshow, la la la. And my helper, Auntie Emmy, who was with us for 14 years, she said, Mummy, I don't think you can go this morning. I'm like, what? It was a Saturday. She's like, you can't go. It's like, why can't I go? She said, I think the boys have chicken pox. I'm like, no, they don't. She's like, they have chicken pox. Go and see them in the back. And they were covered. And I'm like, I don't think it's chicken pox. I think maybe mosquitoes. And they're like, no. She said, Mummy, I'm a midwife. It's chicken pox. I'm like, I said, I have to go. I have to go. And they're like, why are you leaving us? They were 3 and 5. Why are you leaving us? We're really poorly and we hurt and we're itching. I'm like, I said, I'm doing a party for the richest man in the world. I said that to them. And Jake, who he said, does he have 2 wallets? I'm like, probably. So after that, we always called him Billy 2 Wallets. Bill Gates was Billy 2 Wallets, the richest man in the world. But I remember just walking out, crying my eyes out. But it was like, what can I do? But that was, and then there was another story, which is probably worse. And my little one, Joshua, he was so sweet. And he'd say, Mommy, will you play hide and seek with me? I'm like, sure. Hide, you hide. He said, okay. So he got in the wardrobe. I'd forgotten I went to work. And Auntie Emmy said to me later, Mommy, I nearly called the police. I'm like, why? She said, I lost Joshua. And I came home and said, why did you leave me? I was hiding, I was in the wardrobe. And he said, I'm really good at hiding. So for 20 minutes he had the door closed and, and I'm like, sorry. But those were the kind of things, and I seem like an awful mother. And actually they've grown up and they are, as you can imagine, very resilient. But so the mum guilt, so I think the good news is that they survived. And they said there was never a day when they didn't feel they were loved. They might have been forgotten, they might have been left, but they knew they were loved.
Yeah, and that's so important. When I moved here from Indonesia, I moved here and lived here without my parents as well. I was 12. But even though we weren't living together, there was never a moment when I doubted that they loved me. I knew that they were always going to be there for me. But one of the reasons why I started the podcast and even printed the books was because there's always this conflict, I think conflict between wanting to be there for your family, but also wanting to live your best self as a person, as a professional, as a whatever. And so, reflecting back on your motherhood journey and juggling, can you share with us any tips that you have found consistently worked for you? And some of us may be mums, but most of us will be juggling conflicting demands in our various areas of our lives that we can implement.
I think when I look now, I am so thankful that when my children were growing up, they didn't have smartphones. I was coming on the bus today, and believe me, I'm not judgmental of other women, ever. But I noticed so many women and men, when they're wheeling their babies out, they're on their phone. They're not looking them in the eye. And I heard something the other day, and it was like, every day when you put your child in front of the screen for more than an amount of time, there's something like 1,000 words that child is not exposed to that day. So I would say, even if you're, in my case, only with your child for an hour a day, be present at that time. You know, I still say no phones on the dinner table. So try when you are present to really be present. And that's such a hard thing to do these days, but that's something that really worries me about the future.
I agree.
Yeah, that's definitely. It's so hard. For me, it's like that mum guilt. It's a loud voice, and I think sometimes just kind of talking about it and acknowledging it and saying, I'm really struggling with this, with friends or peers, or even self. You know, a lot of the times I'm like, I can't get it out, so I'll voice note it to myself. I'm like, oh, now it's out. Okay, cool. It's not me. That's not who I am as a person, but I think it's just normalizing it, talking about it, talking about how the struggle is really real. For me, it's children. For some, it's parents. For some, it's like their fur babies. It's whatever it is, and we shouldn't feel guilty. We're trying to be everything, but what about who's trying to be that for self? So it's something that I'm getting better at as my kids get a bit older, to just not feel guilty. I think 2020 was a real eye opener for me when we were stuck at home, so much was stripped away quickly, like going to the office, going to get a coffee, having my space, knowing that my kids are at school. All of a sudden I was working, homeschooling, living 24/7 with my family, and I love them. I could escape them, right? So, you know, I remember once a week I'd say I'm going to go to my local rock pool and walk and throw myself into the rock pool and just doggy paddle. And I used to think, oh, this is so self-indulgent. And then I started to flip that mindset to think it's not self-indulgent, it's actually self-care. And if I can swim for 2 little laps and come back more refreshed, freezing but refreshed, I came back happier with self, happier as a mom, happier as an employee, happier as a wife, happier as a human being. So for me, COVID took so much away, but it's also been a gift in many ways to learn how to be at peace with it, or find peace, you know, if that makes sense.
I think because I'm at the beginning of my whole journey, so in terms of having my son, but I've always been like a mom figure to my siblings' kids, so all of my nieces and nephews have always been on land, so I've had, you know, that experience with them. It's completely different, you know, having a son and trying to give a kid back, you know, you're going to keep it, so
Sleep on your sleep.
sleep on your sleep. But he's, you know, he's taught me so much terms of just having patience, because I'm very impatient. Even this week, just moving. Oh, giving me the eyes there. And I think just, going back to, I call on my mum for advice, particularly, growing up, I ask her, what was I like when I was growing up, did I do this, did I do that? And she's always been really good at, just giving advice, but not saying you should do this, which has been really, really great. Yeah, a nice balance. And so is Jonathan is the same. Just having their input and then reaching out to friends who have kids and asking them, did your kid go through this? Because we feel like we're alone. And so there's a lot of new things we're learning now. We're picking up is like, being 11 months. So I think it's just going to go uphill from here. And that's the journey so far. And staying away, not staying away from phones, but we are really good at keeping the phones away. When I get home, my phone's on the table, and it's just either like just hanging out for an hour or two to journey break. So she has her me time being full-time stay-at-home mom. So I'm sort of aware of what I want to do. I think it's reading the same article as well. Just the screen time. So we only let him watch Encanto. Encanto. So he's hooked on Encanto. Maybe once or twice a day. That's good.
That's good. Okay. So as I shared, one of the reasons why I started the podcast was because I was looking for guidance and for tips. When I published a book, what I didn't realize was that with writing the story, my story, how hard it was to just reflecting on my journey, and then to see that in black and white, it was quite, I can't quite describe the feeling. It was therapeutic, but also uplifting, but also humbling. And so I wanted to ask, with your story being published in the podcast and in print, how has it changed your perspective with your?
I really enjoy the podcast. Really set me around. I feel like we're having a run. It was an interview very wonderful. And actually, because I love James Hartog so much, and I was came to the program, I was really shy and timid. And he was James walking into the room and just, taking ownership. I was like, I want some of that. And so we actually, we sat, at lunch and just reviewed.
It wasn't confidence, it was feeling. So.
And then just, when I turned around, I said, can you be my mentor? And so, doing the podcast, hearing your story, I think when we sat down and had, that conversation at the lunch table, that felt home, just sitting there and then, doing the podcast with the same extension, and now publishing the book, it's amazing, going on to me, and, just for pioneering the way for us, allowing us to share the story. Thank you. I'm missing a support,
Me too. I'm girl fanning, right? But I think it's how has the podcast changed? I think that it's really sometimes we just kind of we're in the wheels of motion of life, and it's like it's not enough. And when I achieve that, then I will be worthy. So, from the moment I met Jane, she just normalized it all, right? It was just like, you're doing great. And each one of us have our own stories, and when you write it down, when you hear it played back, or someone else tells it, you're like, you're doing okay, kiddo. You get it wrong, what's to say it's right or wrong? It's either right or wrong. It just is. And so I think when you're playing by those rules and you take service and you share it, and you go, here it is, that's all I have. You don't know where that's going to land or how that's going to resonate with someone else, or someone maybe feels seen, related, understood. And that's what I feel like it's doing for myself, for women, and even the high school students. There's 100 year 11 and 12 students, and I said on a day, I want to know what our little piece of sharing our story, what that inspires or triggers or changes in your life. But I guarantee you, right, in 10, 20 years, I hope to bump into one of you and go, that day I heard you and Jane share and like that. Maybe. That's all we can do, right? That's all I can do is live in hope of showing my authentic self to someone else. If that makes any difference in their lives, bravo. So thank you. Because you believed and thought the story's enough.
I think for me, it was, I've always just next. I've always had joy in what I've done, but I've never really stopped to celebrate. I've never stopped to reflect and think, I've done well, or I've done okay, or I could have done better. So I think for me, it was fantastic. It was an opportunity to reflect, and also to look at what the drivers have been within me during that time, the passion and the purpose. And I've always tended to deflect by using humour. I'm from Yorkshire. We just laugh and we just fight and we just. And so it was lovely to just have the chance to look at my story and reflect, and also to share it with my boys, my two sons, Jake and Josh. Jake's 30 and Joshua's 28. And for them to actually see the story, because Jake said to me a couple of times, I remember you hitting me. And I'm like, how often did I hit you? He said once. I'm like, no, I hit you twice, actually. And it was not massive belt. It was like you wouldn't stop crying when I was exhausted, so I gave you a smack or something. And am I proud of that? No. But it was the 90s. You used to hit your kids then. That's me. But I think for them to read the story and say, so when you were in Hong Kong and you did leave us, we understand more about it now. And I think the other thing, as your children get older, and I'm much older than you who have children, they start going through things themselves, like relationships and like breakups and like challenges at work, and they start seeing you and how you behaved in a different light, because they start developing that wisdom and a little bit of empathy that comes with that. So I think being able to share that story with them enabled them to see, a different side.
Thank you. And I think I've highlighted this in the book as well. Julie, your wisdom is the reason why this book exists. So thank you for sharing that with us. Wendy, you sent me a voicemail over the Christmas period that really made me cry. Would you mind sharing us what happened?
Similar to Jane, I think sometimes you just kind of you're like, it's enough, it's just next. And so when the opportunity came to be in the book, I ordered a copy for myself and then I ordered a copy for my mum. And it was like a tribute for them to, not knowing, they opened it and I thought, so this is, and there's my story. Mum's cancer's back, and she's fighting. She's going through a big treatment. She's supposed to be doing chemo yesterday and today. But every 10 days she goes in, and the reality is I'm working, I've got my own family, and I'm like, I want to be there for her. And so when she's on those days of treatment, I try to pop in, And 10 days ago I was having a really
and I showed up unannounced, and she was there, right? And she was the only thing she takes in. She can't take her phones and everything. And I showed up and I spotted her, and there she was, having her treatment, reading the book, and I was wrecked. And I took a quick photo and I sent it to Jane and I said, you don't know what that means. Sometimes it's hard to tell your parents that their sacrifice was worth everything. And I remember reaching out and saying thank you for sharing my story and giving that gift to my parents. Thank you. That was the most wonderful Christmas present I've ever gotten. I've got goosebumps listening to that, and I just thought, if anything comes out of this book, this is really much fun. So thank you. Okay, so I think it's almost time for us to wrap up. Just if you could give us one tip to take away, what would that be?
Just have fun, I think. I think for me, I'm enjoying every moment that I have with him because one, he is a miracle, and two, as the advice we've been given, enjoy every moment, and that's what we've been doing, being sleep deprived and restless and just enjoying every moment because in the blink of an eye, he's turned, he was in my arms one day and now he's crawling and jumping on me like a jumping castle, so I'm enjoying every moment, so that's for me.
For me, it would be enjoy every colour of yourself. Does that make sense? Like lean in, live authentically, show up. A lot of the times we hold ourselves back. Oh, I can't say that, I can't do that. Pat yourself in. Listen to that intuition. And when you find good people, let them know, like, hey, I really like that. Like, connect and just show up authentically for yourself and for others.
I think for me, the stage I'm at now, I have the gift of time. And I am so, every day, I give thanks for the gift of time. And I choose how to spend that time. It may be coaching or mentoring young people, it may be working for the charity in Cambodia. It might be every afternoon having a scan, a senior citizen's afternoon nap. A scan. And so the gift of time is the most precious thing that any of us have. So even if you only have 10, 15 minutes a day, have a gift of time to yourself. And I also love the concept of the micro moments of joy. And this game, you look at it, what? But every morning, I just love, Jake bought us a beautiful coffee machine for Christmas. Every morning, I make my beautiful coffee, and I do New York Time Connections or Wordle. And it's like 15 minutes, but I get such joy from that 15 minutes. So joy doesn't need to be the world cruises, it doesn't need to be, so find the micro joy. And those micro joy actually get you through the days when the rest of it isn't great. So the gift of time and micro joy is what I would wish for all of us.
Thank you so much, lovely ladies, for being here. Again, the podcast and the book wouldn't be here without your contribution and your generosity and your vulnerability. And tonight wouldn't happen without you guys, so thank you so much for being here and attending this book launch. Special thanks to Bowen and Laura for a wonderful evening. And for my brother Antoine for his beautiful guitar playing. And his family. So thank you, enjoy the food and the drinks, and hope to see you around.
This episode of The Breadwinning Mums was produced by me, Jane Lim, and our theme music was produced by Sam McNally. We recorded this episode on the lens of Darug people who have passed their parenting story for generations. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and thank them for caring for country. Connect with us through LinkedIn or Instagram at Breadwinning Mums. Until next time.